And thanks everybody for joining us this morning to hear about a very special project that Boot Coffee has underway with some really important partners called Coffee for Peace. This is a really amazing program. Part of the reason that I wanted to have this session today is I personally wanted to get some sort of an update on the initiatives that are happening here. I was involved with some of the early architecture of this project, kind of the original proposal to USAID, who is the funding partner here. But since then, I've been so busy on campus work that some other colleagues and some partners have really been working on this firsthand. So I really appreciate all of you attending to listen to this. I really appreciate also, of course, Willem for giving us a little overview and history of the project. Jaime as someone who's working on the ground in Colombia, but also is a roaster buyer of some of these coffees. And Sean, who's with Trabocca, also telling us a bit about their experience as a buyer of this coffee and some really innovative mechanisms that they put in place with the auctions and sales of these coffees. So thank you to all of our speakers. As we've sort of done for past sessions, I'm going to ask each speaker just to take a moment to introduce themselves. And then I'll after everybody's done a brief introduction, I will turn it over for a brief discussion, a brief presentation from Willem introducing the project, Jaime talking about his work and perspective on this, and Sean as well. So they'll each kind of present in turn, and then we'll have some time for Q&A after this. So thank you, everybody. And turning it over to my colleague and boss, Willem, founder of Boot Coffee, to introduce himself.
Thank you, Marcus. Welcome, everyone, on this Monday morning. I'm the founder of Boot Coffee. I guess you had already supposed that I could be the founder since the names match. And I'm very happy to join this team of speakers and experts, Jaime and Sean. And maybe first we'll do a quick round of introduction for Jaime and Sean, or what would you like?
Yeah, we'll do a quick round of introductions. So Jaime, I hope you don't mind. I just pulled your photo off of the CQI website, where I know you're involved as well. You're muted, Jaime.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Do you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me and for having me in this value seminar. And I thank you, William, and thank you, Marco, and thank you, everybody.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your background and your expertise, Jaime?
Okay, so let me check the. So I am working since very beginning with Colombian Coffee Federation in the Quindío Committee. So I was working, developing very focused on quality and also focus in techniques in the process, and also we were passing to the old coffee chains, since exporter, importer, retailer, and right now I have a business in Bogota, based in Bogota, called Catación Pública. So we were talking about this later. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jaime. And Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little background about Trabocca.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, by the way, Marcus and Willem. I'm Sean Capistrant. I'm with Trabocca. We are a specialty coffee importer based in the Netherlands, and we also have an office in the US. Primarily, we've focused on East African coffees over the past 10 years, but we have since shifted our focus to South America as well. And we've been part of this Coffee for Peace project going on 2 years now. So, and I started to get more heavily involved this past year. So it's something that we are looking to present and develop in the US.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Sean. I'm actually drinking some Trabocca coffee this morning. It was that lovely Ethiopia that's now, I don't know, 9 months in our lab, I think, but it's holding up great and tastes really amazing.
The dim too, yeah.
Yep.
I was actually drinking that yesterday, so
perfect. Well,
still holding up, yeah.
Good hands. Very cool. Well, yeah, thank you all for joining us, and let's just get started with a little introduction on this Coffee for Peace program, Willem, if you don't mind. Okay.
Great, thank you, Marcus. Coffee for Peace is basically an alliance that came out of a program called Producers to Markets Alliance, which is a USAID financed program. And USAID is the United States Agency for International Development. And so you might wonder, why does the US government invest in a coffee program in Colombia? And that is an interesting aspect. I could say in brief that the US government has taken for a long time interest in what's going on in Colombia. Part of that is because what happens in Colombia can affect the US. There is, from an historic perspective, an interest by the US government to contribute to the development of economies that are linked to the US interests. And so from that perspective, and from the perspective that, as we all know, that Colombia has been producing traditionally illicit drugs that hit the US market. So from that perspective, there has been always the interest for a long time, for the past 30 plus years, to be involved in Colombia. And Colombia, coffee is a key product. And when Boots Coffee was approached by USAID through an affiliate NGO called FinTrack, when we were approached 4 years ago to be part of a program to propose solutions, that's when we started designing the concepts for what has become Coffee for Peace. And Coffee for Peace is obviously a program where specialty coffee is really used for the benefit of sustaining the peace process in the communities of Colombia that are heaviest hit by violence and by all related types of negative impact of the conflict that has been part of Colombia. In 2017, a peace accord between the Colombian government and the FARC, which has been for the past 40 years the main guerrilla movement, was signed. And actually right after that signing of that accord, that's when this program, Coffee for Peace, as part of a bigger program, Producers to Markets Alliance, took off. And that program does not only focus on coffee, but also on some other products and on some other activities that are aiming at building like the infrastructure, both social as well as economic, in distinct departments in the country. So that's, in a nutshell, that's where Coffee for Peace comes in. I would also say that I personally, starting the program, I felt very strongly about creating a very clear name, a brand for the efforts through this program, so that all of those who are involved in what we do understand the bigger mission at hand. And you've seen some slides, like the slides you currently see basically displays the different departments where we work. And Colombia has departments are basically the names for the regions, the major regions of Colombia. The largest department where we work is Antioquia. Antioquia is the most productive coffee region of Colombia. Another really well-known is Cauca. And then some lesser known departments are like Cauca and are Meta and Caquetá. Meta and Caquetá are relatively unknown for coffee, but they actually grow some great coffee, unique microclimates. And then Bolivar, which lies further up north, is a really interesting department. And Valle de Cauca is also really, really unique. And within those 6 departments, we focus through a program which has 2 major pillars. We focus on quality improvements, as well as on export facilitation. And for that purpose, we have, with Boot Coffee, we have our own team that works within Colombia and remotely into Colombia. And then our collaborators from the USAID FinTrack organizations, they employ a large number of technical agricultural advisors, and they work in the field close to the communities where the farmers are. In programs like these, there are many moving pieces. And traditionally, what is always very essential, and I think Jaime will allude more to that, will explain that more, is that prior to starting these programs, and this is where we focused on a lot, it's essential to understand what the issues are, what historically the issues have been in terms of the dynamic between quality and farmer income and in this case, peace. And so we focused a lot on understanding in each of the areas where we work what the issues are, and then setting a strategy is essential, and then getting off to work. And then within our team, we have KC O'Keefe and David Paul, who have been very instrumental in helping us move forward, and then Jaime Duque. These are our internal technical team members, and then collaborating with strategic allies like the FNC, which is the National Coffee Federation of Colombia, which is also an exporter, but the FNC is also a major promoter of Colombian coffees internationally, working with other exporters from Colombia, and then not to forget working with the importers of this world, the Traboccas of this world, and roasters like Farmer Brothers, which is a big roaster, or smaller roasters like Boat Coffee, which is the company of my brother. And so being able to develop a network like that, and being able to develop a common philosophy that everyone believes in, I see that as one of the cornerstones of the success of a program like this. And I think we are very happy so far about the results we've been able to book for this program. We've been very successful in helping negotiate export business for the primary farmer organizations we work with. And all of the business that we negotiate, that we focus on, is traceable specialty coffee. So these are 2 elements that are key to our program. Traceable meaning that it's clear who the farmer is, or which cooperative the farmer belongs to. And in order to have that in place, that requires some good preparation, which we focused on diligently. And then specialty coffee, meaning focusing on coffees that meet at least the benchmark of 80 points, which is both, as most of you know, driven by the preparation of the coffee, the physical quality, as well as the sensory quality, the quality of the cup. And I'm very happy that on this call we have Sean and Jaime that can explain more about this distinct dynamic of how it is to work on these principles. And I'd love to hear your questions also. And those of you who haven't been able to purchase and experience any of the Coffee for Peace coffees yet, I can really recommend you do so, because these are some of the more unique coffees that Colombia has been producing for a long time.
Yeah, these coffees are really phenomenal. Thank you, Willem, for kind of setting the stage for us. And yeah, as you were talking, I was just showing, you know, some of the coffees that are here and available through Cropster Hub at, you know, this level of detail, and the farmers sort of telling their own story really speaks to the traceability and the sort of transparency that's available in these lots. And I would love to hand it over to Jaime. I'm going to load up his presentation here. So give me just one moment. Okie doke. And yeah, Jaime, I think it's nice for you to kick it off, because you do have this unique perspective, of course, in Colombia, but even with your business and the various avenues of your business. I'm really curious to hear your take on all of this and to hear about your experiences on the program.
You hear me? You hear me well? Okay. So I gonna explain. This is my speech. I will share this concept very quickly. So the first one is about myself, and also about Catación Pública business model in Bogotá. And the second one is why Coffee for Peace. The third one is the strategy, visions, and approach of Coffee for Peace program. And the last one, we are talking about quality philosophy versus farmer incomes versus impact on the peace process. So move on the next, please. So Catación Pública, it's a, let's move back 2 months ago, because 2 months ago, Catación Pública had one business. And after COVID, we want to separate 2 months ago and now in the COVID-19 times. So we have been integrated different business units. One of them is wholesale. So I am attending a restaurant, coffee shops, and offices. And the second one, I run an educational program. So training people inside the coffee chains in Colombia and out of Colombia. And the third one, retailer. I have a model, a coffee shop or coffee store, very focused on coffees. So I don't sell juices, sandwich, and infusion and everything. So I decided to focus on coffee and coffees from everywhere in Colombia. So let me illustrate the presentation. This is that you see as our lab on back into the coffee shop. So so the idea is to the idea in our coffee shop is to teach the consumers to understand what is the acidity, what is the body, what is different flavors and things that the consumer has to know. But now Catación Pública business changes dramatically. We have a website which not important in the past, and now I have to be honest, is the main incomes similar to some of you guys, I'm sure. And the lockdown e-commerce was my lectures and my learning topic. So it's hard, but the business is growing very fast, but it's other business. we need to learn to move since the physic to the virtual. So, and the people has to learn also. The bar was in the past, but now it's the telephone, the WhatsApp, the e-commerce. So now we are in front of a huge challenge, but we are jump on this situation. I'm sorry. So moving to the next one, please. So why Coffee for Peace? So I am not a specialist of armed conflict in Colombia.
This is a powerful slide though, Jaime. I just have to interrupt and say the image that you chose on this presentation, when I looked at this morning when it arrived in my inbox, it just touched me. So thank you for that.
Okay, so the conflict has been for over 60 years in Colombia. It has caused hundreds of thousands deaths, mainly civilian, millions of victims of forced displacement and forced disappearances. So we have a mix of actors. We have a mix of actors like ELN, National Liberation Army, EPL, Popular Liberation Army, and FARC, Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and also paramilitaries. So it's a powerful mix and very damaged mix that affected our country for over 60 years. So now it's at an historical moment of transition to peace. So next one. Next, please. Okay, perfect. So understanding the past is,
there's some delay, Jaime.
Yeah.
The understanding the past slide is up now.
Okay. So understanding the past is crucial in order to create a pathway for the future. The USAID finance producer to make market alliance collaborated with coffee producer in community affected by violence in the department of Cauca, Antioquia, Bolívar, Valle, Meta, and Caquetá. So this is the problem. It's passing outside of this region because we are spend many or take this kind of problem. So moving to the next one, please. So what is the strategy, vision, and approach of the Coffee for Peace? So we have let me explain 4 pieces which play with a Lego. The first one is long-term relation buyers and PFO, producer partner organization. This is a really important key. So if you see, we are trying in the picture, you see the some buyers interacting with our community, this community at the far level, the region, very dangerous region in the past, but now is moving, taking this transition into the peace process. Transparency and traceability principle that William said before. So this is the really important. We are moving, we are exposed this origin. For instance, talking about Santander de Quilichao in Cauca, or Santa Rosa in the south of Bolívar, or maybe Amalfi in Antioquia, Mesetas in Meta state, and so on. We have a different origin than unknown region right now, and we want to offer these kind of origins to our buyers. And the strategy is based in a high standard of quality. Since the beginning, when we did a diagnostic, so we find one quality, but now it's improving. And also we decided to build into the program a microprocessor program, which is a strong educational program at the far level, mainly in a focus on the milling process, allowed to get the best quality cup And this is the reason that we are moving to look for a better prices. Next one, please.
Jaime, can you talk just a moment about
Sure.
the microprocessor program and how that's
Okay.
different than the typical model in Colombia?
Yeah, that's the microprocessor program. It's a program developed by us to use 17 criteria. We are expressed in 4 posters, and we are writing a manual right now. What is the focus? To transmit. We have been training also 3,000 growers at the far level. So the idea is through the since picking, since harvesting to the storage, to have a full control of the quality. So we teach that what is the best pick to take it, what is the best measure that the grower has to take, what is the best the pulping process, what is the perfect moment to fermentation, wash the coffee, and what is the best way to dry the coffee, to look for in between 10 and 12 percentage of moisture, and then what is the best way to storage this kind of quality. So there are a long training, and we are moving in to share through the posters and manuals into the more than 12,000 growers right now in these areas. I'm sure that this implemented process, it will help them to improve the quality. So this is parallel to our process.
Great. Yeah, thank you for speaking a little more to that. And I know your next slide does talk about the quality philosophy and how that ties to income and peace.
Okay, so here we started with a baseline study. We did a more than 500 sampling analysis. Each sample has a physical analysis and also sensorial analysis. And we found some problems in the beginning, cap profile, mainly dirty cap, some of them is a fermented, something like that. And now we are taking a sample each year, and we are going to see the quality is going up, it's ramping up, and now it's a really very good to see how the quality is growing. And also this quality is integrated by microprocessor training concept. And so the idea, we have been doing also some auction. We did at least 4 contexts in Cauca, and we supported 1 in Antioquia. So the idea is to bring buyers like Trabocca, like Sean and team from Trabocca come to, it's a very key partnership right now, and other buyers coming to this context. When you see the picture on the top, that we are capping the last context, and also we are offering these coffees in some regional buyers. So the idea is to share the quality, to be at the place level, to test the quality of coffees from this specific region. And also we got a very good result, economical result, that help to incomes to our growers, and to avoid that these people, these PFOs, going back to the illicit crops. The next one, please. So finally, you may think, how can I help in this matter? Well, we want to invite you to be as a part of this journey, which support peace process in Colombia, not only for buying a coffees, but also to buy a great coffees, a great stories, and start to write the new story for these coffee communities, Marcus. I'm not the only guy in this journey. I can leave to mention to my partner, Casey O'Keefe and David Willem and David Paul, like Good Coffee Company, and to say thanks to USAID and FinTrack team. Without them, it's impossible to support this initiative into the peace process. So if you have any question, just let me know.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll have some time for Q&A as we wrap up. But I am, one question that I just have, and it was a question that came early on in the call. Jaime, how has COVID impacted the work kind of on the ground in Colombia? You talked about it with your business specifically, but what are you thinking the impact might be on this Coffee for Peace initiative?
For me, the impact is tremendous impact, because we are very close to the civility, this situation. So when the people is living in the city, maybe they don't know how it's passing in this area. So the last seminar I did with the Coffee for Peace team, talking with Senkoik, for example. When we talked with them, so I knew that they can buy the coffees with money. They have to buy groceries, and to ship the groceries to the communities. And the communities put the bags of coffee to change it. Food by coffees. So it's, and the situation is very critical in Cauca right now. The violence is hard. So we need to move not only foreigners, but also Colombians into this area and try to help them and to look for better condition and better business. It's not a business, a different business. I ensure that the people going back to this terrible illicit crop. But the impact is not only on the quality, because the region for buyers. I have been buying a coffee from Coffee for Peace. So I have a special package layout with Coffee for Peace logo, and try to communicate in my shop to people that what happened in this region, and the quality is not aid, it's a synergy. So we need to, I'm sure that the problem is the pieces, the situation, the crops, the illicit crops, it's very critical. But the idea is to create a synergy and win to win, because I am buying the coffee. I am buying a great coffee also, but I am helping this region, and they are helping me to be a very good synergy.
Great. No, thank you. Thank you, Jaime. I'm going to turn it over to Sean now. I think
Sure.
he can pick up where you left off really well. There's also a really dynamic discussion going on in the chat window. So Sean, as you come on, I'm going to queue up some of these kind of market foundations questions for you. So you can kind of keep them in mind as you're talking about Trabocca's involvement. And really this key question is coming from Juliet, which is there a premium associated with the coffees? And as roasters, how can they be sure that the farmers are receiving a higher price? Casey chimed in the chat talking about the average export price being above 160 per pound FOB and more than 2 million in sales to date, and how these premiums are negotiated between the primary farmer organizations and buyers, which our team helps to facilitate. And then those contracts are reported to USAID. Juliet then further asks how that compares to commercial coffees like an Excelso EP, and if we have a sense of farm gate price as well. So I know that that's a lot. You don't have to answer all of them, Sean, but these are some of the questions that folks have on their minds as we're talking about this. And we can, of course, have a bigger discussion. We can bring Casey and David in as well at the end.
Yeah, I'll get to those questions, but first I kind of want to talk about what kind of attracted us to this project in particular. There's kind of two things. First of all, it's sort of the mechanics of the supply chain in Colombia are not that different from Ethiopia. I mean, there's a lot of differences, of course, but I think fundamentally they're very similar. So that was one thing. And the second thing, and I think this is the most important thing, especially for us, is sort of how do we see the future of specialty coffee? What does it look like in 5 to 10 years when the companies are a lot bigger and there are a lot more of them, and it's specialty coffee is more in the zeitgeist of the consumer? So first of all, I think a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads when we started going to Colombia. What are you in Colombia for? You're mostly Ethiopia, you're mostly Kenya, things like this. And we're like, okay, well, there's, ultimately the starting producer is a smallholder. And I think that is what has made us very successful in Ethiopia, is managing these supply chains that are fundamentally built on the smallholder. And sort of how do you distribute that? How do you streamline quality? And you see that a lot in Colombia. Also, the other thing is Colombia and Ethiopia have very similar problems where they have too much good coffee, and that they're extremely undervalued. And how can we can push that in the market and get people, have roasters become aware and sort of teach that to their consumers. Hey, this is Ethiopia, this is Colombia. They're both amazing coffees. They're very affordable, and there's a lot of them. So how can we sort of promote that? So when David first approached us, we were sort of like, hey, this is pretty good. And to that, there's the whole volume aspect. There's a lot of coffee in Colombia, and as roasters get bigger, they're going to need to sort of fill those volumes out with quality and good pricing. And Colombia is the perfect fit for that, because if you look at sort of how manufacturers grow, they're going to look at it. They're going to say, okay, we want to maintain our level of quality, but we have to think about price. We have to think about distribution. We have to think about overall delivery terms of the year. Colombia has that. They have basically 2 harvests a year for the picking as specialty coffee companies grow. Another huge impact, another huge aspect of sort of this is how the roasters can stay sort of connected with the producer, and I think that's what Coffee for Peace does. Any roaster can call me up and say, yeah, I need 10 bags of a blender, and I could ship it. But Coffee for Peace has a huge opportunity to get the roaster and the producer together and get them excited. And that's a huge thing in the auction that I really, really enjoy. And that is, everyone's in the same room. Everyone's excited. It's bananas. Everyone just goes nuts. Coffees get huge premiums. Everyone's excited. When they go home, everyone's energized. The producers are energized. Hey, look we have a market. There's people excited about our coffee. And then you have the roaster saying, hey, I feel very connected to this origin. I'm really excited. And you have the auction coffees, but more importantly, you have sort of the bigger lots that we were building. And these are sort of the community lots. So anything that doesn't get sold the auction, we can build these lots. And this is kind of going to go to your question earlier. Was it Juliet who asked about the premiums? And we're basically building these lots, and we're saying, okay, the market price might be at 150, but if we can pay 195 for this specific coffee, yeah, it's not $50 a pound, or it's not a huge premium, but it's a big enough premium where it's going to give people a boost. It's going to incentivize these producers to produce more quality and deliver on time. And what we aim to do is be very very transparent about that with our buyers and say, okay, this blend is this cost FOB, and then we charge X amounts over the FOB costs to import it, to ship it, all that. And this is what you can say. And yes, this isn't the highest scoring coffee you've ever had, but it's delicious. Consumers like it, and it's going to help build your brand. And I think that's a huge key for Colombia is, it could be used as an anchor for people's brands. So for us, the premiums aren't, these aren't gigantic, but they're they're above market price. And what that means is everybody in the chain can be profitable. The producer can be profitable, the exporter, the importer, and the roaster. And ultimately, if everyone can be profitable and the quality is very high, then that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, and Sean, I was so excited about Trabocca's involvement. Even in that first auction, you talked about the community lots. And I think, one aspect that really moved me was that you sort of thought of those community lots as being a risk mitigation tool, right?
Yes.
Because you're asking farmers to submit these coffees for an auction. The auction takes place sometimes in the future. They're missing the opportunity to sort of sell that coffee at a market price, kind of in the typical market mechanisms in the community. So by kind of guaranteeing this price that is a little bit more than what they would be earning sort of regularly, like you say, not a huge premium, but that's also a great way to sort of incentivize farmers to participate in these systems while taking away some of the risk. So I thought that was, to me, a major contribution that Trabocca made in the early days of these auctions.
Yeah, and again, I think the auction serves two purposes. Again, it's nice to have a party in a community, and that you see these coffees go for high prices, $13, $14 a pound, in which all the premium goes to the producer, and it adds a sense of the community and competition at the same time. And again, it's an opportunity for us to build these lots that are in fact what we think is sort of the future of specialty coffee. The idea of having 10 bags of a micro lot is great, and I bet it tastes amazing. But ultimately, it's the demand's going to be volume and quality at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like how can we build
that caters to both? And this is exactly what it is. And this is exactly what we want to do in Ethiopia as well, is sort of build these high volume quality supply chains. So we're not sitting here and we focus on a really small lot that it may cut really well and has good premium, but that's not sustainable. And I think this program is something that is really sustainable, and it helps that we have partners like Jaime on the grounds, and of course Boot and David and KC really helping and driving this along. Because initially we were like, I don't know if this is a good fit for us. And then as the wheels started turning, as everyone was, really working hard, we saw the pieces. We're like, okay, this is actually a huge opportunity, which actually brings me to my next point, because I know it's probably going to be asked, is how does COVID, play into this? And if anything, I think this is an extremely good opportunity and a really good time for this to take off, because as roasters sort of struggle to find new supply chains and readjust, their consumers, they're now battling the large commercial brands for shelf space in the market. It's like, okay, how can you be more competitive? Well, you can bring your prices down a little bit, have a quality product, and then do volume. So I think, if anything, this is it hurts right now. I think business isn't really great for anybody, but ultimately, this is a huge opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people. And I think there are a lot of roasters that are starting to pick up on it. And they're like, hey, that coffee you sent, it was under $3 and it was amazing. How come it's so inexpensive? Well, this is a supply chain, and this is our point. And this coffee can be a huge opportunity for you to grow. And people are starting to take advantage of that.
That's great. And that's kind of the aspiration behind it. What has been the actual feedback from some of your clients and customers? How has the coffee performed for Trabocca as a product?
Hang on one second. I actually just lost you real quick. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
My head. Okay, there we go. Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty.
Yeah, no worries, Sean. I was just curious. You talked a little bit about the kind of hopes for Trabocca with Coffee for Peace. What is the reality been? How have your customers responded? How have these coffees performed, kind of as an offering on your list?
I think we have two types of buyers. We have the buyers that go down with us and they buy the micro lots and they buy the auction coffees, and they usually end up also buying some sort of blender, a sort of a component piece, because obviously they can't sell, they can't sell all their coffees for prices that they paid at, $15 a pound or $10 a pound or what have you. So they need something to sort of, bring people in and then say, okay, yeah, we have this micro lot, but this was also part of it. This is a huge project. This is what Colombia has to offer. For us, I sort of see the future of us is going and looking at different areas. Right now, we're focusing mainly on Cauca. We're starting to look more in Antioquia as well, and I would like to explore more areas, because ultimately, you go down there, and you go to places like Senquik, and you'll cup the coffees, and you're like, these are amazing. How come they don't have homes? Like, well, we don't have a really connection. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, of course, this is what the whole project's about. And I think there are tons of opportunities down there for quality and volume. So for us, I would like to develop more there. I see it as as a land of opportunity, much like Ethiopia has been for us. And it has challenges as well in its own different ways, but I think ultimately it's worth it, because for us, we're looking down the road 10 years ahead. What are roasters going to look like? What is the market going to look like? What are consumers going to be like? And we feel strongly that it's all going to be about affordable, quality coffees, because ultimately that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, that's a refrain that we've heard in many of these webinars. Whenever we kind of circle back around to COVID and the impact on coffee long term. I mean, I think there's still going to be a place for those boutique coffees, those special occasion coffees. But I think you're right. It's the competitiveness on the grocery store shelf and online with maybe 2-pound bags, or even 2 or 3 kilo bags, where those that are able to kind of adapt and fill that niche might be the most successful. And it's cool that these coffees, and to hear how Trabocca thinks of these coffees fitting into that realm, because they're great.
Yeah, again, it's part of our vision. I think ultimately it's going to be a big part of ours as we grow. And again, it's funny because this is not something we planned. It was completely serendipitous, the whole thing. And we're looking at it right now. We're saying, okay, this is a huge opportunity for us, sort of, to help people, to help our customers become profitable. So.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, of course.
And we've still got this great chat coming on in the Zoom window as well. And I'm wondering if I could perhaps unmute Casey and David to, or ask them to unmute themselves to also just kind of chime in and provide a little bit of background on kind of some, I guess, market fundamentals and supply fundamentals and on the ground in Colombia, because I think Juliet had a really great question that has sparked this kind of comprehensive discussion.
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear me?
Just perfect.
Oh, great, wonderful. Yeah, I saw Juliet's question and then I just sent a short response over here, but I think it's an excellent question to ask, and something that we think a lot about, and that's the impact of our program and our efforts. And farm gate prices are also something we do think a lot about, and how we can add more value and get more money into the hands of farmers. So we work in a couple of different ways. One is by basically connecting coffees available through the organizations we're working with to potential buyers. And there's a range of qualities available from the groups that we're working with. And therefore the coffees that we're selling range, as I mentioned in the chat, from commercial plus a little something for quality or for the project, to much higher end coffees that are more on the micro lot side, or auction coffees in other cases, where premiums tend to be much higher. And then really ultimately one of our primary goals in all of this is to continue looking for opportunities to develop very strong relationships between coffee growers in areas transitioning to peace with good buyers, with good relationships that endure, that go on many years. And so I think really the goal is that. And we can look at some of the impact in the short term, but I really think the long-term relationships are what we're trying to foment and what we're trying to develop so that there's a continual impact over time. The other thing I was going to say is that some of the investments have been investments in infrastructure, drying capacity, in training activities through the organizations that we're working with, rather than direct premiums to producers. So it's a range of activities, and we really hope through these relationships we're building to have greater impact over the long term.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think, and one of the most powerful numbers that I see that Casey added to the chat was, through like a strong partner like the FNC, export costs on a container basis have been incredibly efficient, right? 16 to 30 cents per pound for kind of container loads and 30 to 50 cents a pound for micro lots. I mean, that's awesome, right? That means more money is available on the table for producers, and also means that those coffees are more affordable for roasters kind of in higher volumes. So I find that really also just a really inspiring financial aspect of this.
Yep, exactly. I think that's really a key thing in finding that sweet spot is the goal, where we have the ability to make an impact, and then through efficiencies and through kind of the right fit, gain market access for these organizations, and so finding really the right balance has been the key. FNC has been a key partner in terms of exports, and the ability for them to efficiently and quickly get coffees out is a tremendous benefit.
That's great. And Jaime?
Marcus, no, I just add something. It's a major issue for me. It's if you see the numbers, the prices, some people say, it's not too much. But we are thinking in a long term. We are thinking outside of the New York Stock Exchange. We are thinking to create a synergy between buyer and PFOs. We are thinking more ahead of this program for the future community. So the idea is to establish a very strong relations. If Trabocca or Atlas Coffee, who is buying some coffee from Santa Rosa, keep going, buying these coffees, and in a normal prices. So when the prices is too high, it's a problem for all people on the chains. So we need to be in balance. Very good income for growers, very good import for people on the chains in between, and very good income for the importer. So that's the reason that we are here, trying to establish this business model, and to allow these people keep going, growing and planting coffee in this specific region.
Yeah, when I think about the aims of this, and with coffee and the income from coffee really being the foundation of this peace process, and making sure that these communities and these producers have a reliable, sustainable income over time, so that coffee is attractive versus maybe more illicit activities, or being involved in violent activities. I think that, as you say, Jaime, and as David and Sean mentioned as well, this idea of longevity, right? It has to be a really strong foundation where these buyers are there year after year for decades to ensure that these communities are really established as successful coffee growing communities.
And also we are hoping to have a very strong brand beyond of Coffee for Peace. It's a new important brand in Colombia, because it's after signing the agreement of peace, So this movement is very strong here. And not only here, but also outside. So the Coffee for Peace brand trademark will be a very important for Colombia, I'm sure, that allowed you communicate the situation, but also to support and to help these communities in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to the day when I walk into a grocery market and see that Coffee for Peace label on coffees ranging from the kind of commercial coffees all the way up to the higher end specialty coffees. So that's great. I wonder if Willem, if we can bring you back in to maybe wrap us up a little bit, give us a little summary. I love this photo and this moment of the auction with your brother. So nice way to take us out.
Yeah, this photo was taken during the Antioquia competition. And that was actually not too long before we were confronted with this pandemic crisis. Going into that competition, we decided to adapt special cupping protocols and preventing any form of or any opportunity for contaminations and etc. And that fortunately worked out really well. My brother, who has been a very strong advocate and ambassador of Coffee for Peace, has been involved in our efforts since the beginning, and so that's really great. The winning coffee lot that was sold at the auction was sold at $13.50, which was a great price. And I can hardly describe the wonderful scenery in the auction room where the coffees were being sold through the involvement of our auction master, my colleague and friend Javier Giraldo was a great who is the best auction master I know for these types of coffee events. And you know, these auctions obviously they are not models by themselves that will replace how the coffee market works, but I think they're very important to invigorate that element of connection between producers and buyers, and the spirit of such auction events is really what helps us continue our efforts through the involvement of David with the export facilitation. And I would say, you know, these competitions and auctions are the ultimate model of showing how, traceability and how connection between buyers and farmers can work. And I want to again emphasize that you know the world, we have many wonderful programs in coffee worldwide that have proven their value over the years. And Coffee for Peace is a true example of how you can implement this aspect of making the farmer visible. So this goes more beyond traceability. This goes about the visibility of farmers. And I think, you know, traceability models like these are great. They specifically will work for specialty coffees where there is a quality premium on the table and where farmers ought to be rewarded for that extra work. And I think, you know, that economic principle of knowing who the farmer is or who the cooperative is, and then being able to drive back the added value, some significant portion or a good portion to the farmer. That's I think a very fundamental aspect of how coffee markets should work. You know, in wine that works, in other food products, specialty food products that work. So why not in coffee? And as a roaster, and being a roaster and having many clients out there, you're able to directly contribute to farmers building up like a better future for them and their families. This is like very sincere, fundamental stuff. This impacts people at a huge scale. And I feel very fortunate to be able to be part of that. And I want to thank Sean and Trabocca for their vision, and all of the other roasters and traders and importers that have been joining our ranks. And I want to also thank my team members, Jaime, Casey, David, and many more, Alejandra, Javier, and many others that I don't mention now, for helping these efforts become reality.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you all. Just as we wrap up, we're at the top of the hour. If someone wants to buy these coffees, of course, auctions and live auctions aren't happening right now. If any of our roasters who are tuning in here or that follow it on the discussion, how can they buy these coffees? What's available?
So I just want to mention is that we have a very exciting event coming up, the first ever virtual coffee buying tasting caravan. So that's an event for which participants can sign up in two ways, either as a buyer, and that means that you're going to receive samples, you cup them, and you commit to buying coffees, or you're going to try to commit to that. And this caravan is also open for participants who are not necessarily buying, to get a taste of Colombia's coffee communities through the participation of the cooperatives, the primary farmer organizations that will be part of that. That will happen late July, early August. That will be published soon. And that's a caravan organized in the same way as these caravans are taking life. You can buy coffees through a marketplace that is established through with the participation of Cropster, who is an important ally. That marketplace, if you Google Coffee for Peace Cropster Hub or Coffee for Peace Cropster, then you can find this marketplace, and this is where you can solicit samples of these microlots. Plus, you can find Coffee for Peace coffees through various of our market allies, like Trabocca, Atlas, Royal has been working with us, and there are a few others, and I would suggest that you get in touch with David at bootcoffee.com, David@bootcoffee.com, and David Paul will help you further. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And I've just added some things to the chat window, so that's there for folks as well. Thank you so much to our participants today. It really means a lot to me to have this valuable session, and for me to get an update on where things stand. For our attendees, we have some upcoming webinars available, and roast profiling, roasting business, and scoring with the SCA form. You can always find these updated programs at bootcoffee.com. And for upcoming Monday morning sessions, we will have some topics coming up like branding for e-commerce, the impact on global retail, and sustainability beyond organic, where we talk about biodynamics and more. And those sessions are also at bootcoffee.com on our course calendar. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week. I love starting my Mondays with these. I think I wrap up saying that every time. So I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Everybody.
Thank you, Jaime.
Thank you. Take care.